Hello, everyone. Welcome to our repopulation webinar for students. I appreciate all of you that are in attendance, and we look forward to the questions that you will be asking us. I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. First, this is being recorded and it will be posted for anyone that was not able to attend so that they can listen later. We will be taking questions which can be posted in the Q&A feature, and you can also vote on those questions. I do want to add that we are not going to have all of the answers today. We're doing our best to answer as many as possible. We want you to have as much information as possible. We know that there's a lot of questions, anxiety, wondering, all of those pieces. So we want to do our best. With that said, we will plan to have another one in about a month. And if we get more information sooner, we will definitely have it sooner. I would like to start by introducing our panelists. We have Ann Loomis from our Disability Resource Center. We have Dr. Liz Millar from ASI. We have Rita O'Neill from Student Health. Jared Seha from Dining. Reyes Luna Housing. Mike Yu from Parking. And Dr. Terry Gomez and Dr. Cecilia Santiago Gonzalez from Student Success. So a couple of little things I want you to keep in mind as we get started is that we have guidelines that we have to follow and adhere to from the LA County Health that are in alignment with the CDC. So you may hear about other universities that are doing something different. They may sit in a different county, and so they have different guidelines. Another important piece is that most of the guidance we get is for higher education, which is different than it might be for K through 12. It may also differ for restaurants, Disneyland, other types of activities. We have a special classification as universities, and so we do need to follow those protocols. Our most recent protocol is that we will still be being required to have 6 feet of distance and wearing masks. So the 6 feet of distance is still there. That could change over the summer, but I wanted to be able to touch on that. We are also working on outdoor spaces for eating, studying, meeting. That way students would have space outside. We're looking at, do we set up a tent so that there's shade? So there are those different types of activities that we're looking at and planning for. For when it comes to student organizations and student clubs and activities, we are still in the process of identifying what that can look like depending on the guidelines that come. And right now it would probably be a lot of outdoor things in small groups, wearing masks and being socially distanced. But as that changes, we'll be able to say more. For vaccines, we have received notice, if you haven't heard, that the California State University system is requiring for all faculty, staff, and students to have a vaccine, and that would be upon FDA approval. And we are right now waiting on the policy of what exactly that would mean. And once we have that policy, we'll be able to give further updates. What we do know is that there would be medical and religious exemptions for that. And we'll definitely answer what we can in this moment, knowing that we will have more information as the guidelines are available. A couple of things that I've gotten from students, I do want to say that wearing a mask is definitely going to be part of the experience of returning to the campus for any in-person activities. For some of the things we have open now, we do require a mask. There'll be some type of training that students will be expected to complete. We'll still be pushing social distancing, washing your hands, and more than likely RSVPing for events when possible and scheduling appointments ahead of time when that is possible. We know it's not always possible and we'll be flexible, but those are some things that we can anticipate that you could expect for the fall semester. So I'm going to start by asking Reyes Luna from Housing if he could provide us with a short update.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am Reyes Luna, and I'm excited to be able to kind of give you an overview of where we're at with housing for the next academic year. Some of you have already submitted questions, and so I've took that into account as I'm going to go ahead with this statement. We're currently looking to open up housing at 75% occupancy for the fall. What that means and will look like is that we will be placing 4 people per suite, with most being in single rooms and sharing a bathroom with one other person. In our new buildings, we will have singles and double rooms available, as well as in our traditional halls, which are our red bricks, my favorites, there'll be single rooms. And so not all room types will be filled to capacity. At the beginning of fall 2021, we will be offering some triples and doubles only as placeholders for future. So if we are giving clearance to allow triples to happen in the spring, you may get a roommate. You may be able to be in a double space, living as a single room, but know that in the spring, you may get a roommate. And so again, not all occupancy will be full in the fall, but we're really looking to try to maximize our space, keeping CDC guidelines in account. And so that's kind of where we're at with the numbers. A couple questions around when will you know? We're planning on letting students know their assignments in June. And so look in early June through your housing portal and email to find out about your assignments. The other thing that we're taking into strong consideration is the health and safety of our residents prior to coming onto campus, as well as during their time with us. And so again, following both federal, state, local, and health department guidelines, as well as the CDC, we're going to be making sure that our students who are living with us are still being looked out after. They're going to be our Bronco's Cares Pledge that we currently have in existence will still be in effect in the fall, which really is a partnership with our residents to work together to adhere to safety precautions for not only themselves, but for the community members, which as Christina has mentioned, our VP, that there will be the requirement to wear face coverings in social spaces. Social distancing will continue. We'll be having our custodial team go through and do disinfecting and cleaning according to guidelines. The new thing that I would like to kind of put out there that we're still discussing is the potential for vaccination requirements to live in housing. That's currently being discussed, as well as ongoing COVID testing for residents. That conversation is still in play as well, because that was a couple questions that folks have asked. I'm trying to get through all the questions real quick, and there's not very much time. The other thing is questions about refunds. If you do your cancellation prior to 30 days of move-in, once you've been assigned, you'll get a full refund. I would like to direct the rest of the questions. You'll be able to find them in our Q&A, our frequently asked questions portal on our website. So I encourage you to go to our housing website after the end of this conclusion of this presentation. We're going to upload all of our FAQs to answer the questions that I did not get to answer at this time.
Thank you, Reyes. And we'll have some more time to take questions. They're just doing a brief overview with some of the questions we received ahead of time. Mike from Parking, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you, Christina. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Yu, and I am your Director of Parking and Transportation Services. There's been a couple frequently asked questions regarding parking in the fall semester, so I just wanted to address those real briefly. One of the pieces of feedback was, I heard there might not be a charge for parking in the fall. Is this true? Unfortunately, the answer is no. As much as I would like to hand out parking permits, left and right, we do have expenses that we need to pay, 80% of which go to just paying down our loans on these parking structures. So yes, there will be a charge for the fall semester. The other questions were, how much will parking be per day versus per semester? And the answer is there will be no change to parking permits. The cost will still be $8 per day and $231 for the semester. However, we did open up a different option, which is students have been asking me, Mike, if I only have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays, I really don't want to pay for the full semester permit. So we will be launching what we are calling a flexible parking permit for the fall. Basically, you can purchase a permit that's good on Monday, Wednesday, and we threw in Friday, or a permit that's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's going to be for 50% of the cost. So 231 divided by 2. Okay. Let's see. Parking rules. We were asked if parking rules would be waived for the first week of school or enforced immediately. So yes and no. We will be enforcing immediately. However, for the first week of school, we'll be issuing warnings and warnings only. And that's to allow for time that for everyone to come back and get used to paying for parking again on campus, because I know it's been quite some time that we haven't done that. So we want to provide for that education period. And lastly, the other frequent question was, will the Bronco Express shuttle be back in operation? And the answer is yes. It will start off in a limited capacity, so we'll focus mainly on circulating the main campus first, as well as our overflow parking if we happen to need it. But the level of service will scale directly with the level of demand. So if we have more students coming back on campus, then we'll scale up the Bronco Express service as well. And those were all the frequent questions. So I hand it back to you, Christina.
Thank you, Mike. That was very helpful. Now I ask Rita, our Director of Student and Health Services, if she would go next.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'll just reiterate, based on a question, do we need to get vaccinated? So I'll reiterate what Christina said, that the CSU has announced that they believe that that will be a requirement, but contingent on full approval by the FDA of the vaccines and access to the vaccines. I'd like to also acknowledge another question. Is there an alternative for those who are not comfortable to get a vaccine? And then another question, how do we qualify for the medical and religious exemptions? So unfortunately, we don't have solid answers for those questions yet. As Christina has said, we anticipate that there will be exemptions, both religious and medical exemptions, but we don't have very much information on those yet. And then another question was, how do we submit a vaccine card? And I'm happy to say I do have a good answer for that. We at Student Health can take your vaccine cards if you would like to send them to us. And I'm going to give you 3 steps. If you Google CPP immunizations, that will put you into a great Google URL that you'll find right away. Click on that, and then you'll see log into My Health portal. And then that is where you can follow step by step to just upload a picture of your vaccine card through a message. So we are getting vaccine cards at this point, and we can keep them safe for you in case you're concerned about losing them or anything, and they'll be part of your medical record when you come to see us at Student Health. I think those were the specific questions that I had, and so I'll turn it back over to Christina.
Thank you, Rita. So a couple questions are coming in, and I'd like to start with Terry and Cecilia. So there's a couple of questions about taking classes, and one of them asked specifically, would I be able to continue taking classes from home, which is a good question. We know that's come up a lot. And there's another question about, classes have, we've been told about half are going to maybe be in person, half may be virtual. for the fall semester. So how's this going to work? What does that look like?
Thank you for the question. Let's start with the first one. Can I continue taking classes from home? At this point, as you're registering, you have the option of signing up for courses that are already showing up as fully online. It's either asynchronous or synchronous, but that's the online modes. And so about half of our classes have that modality, or hybrid, which means there is a face-to-face component. Let me get back to hybrid in a second. So if you signed up for courses that are right now showing up as fully online, asynchronous or synchronous, those will not change regardless of the circumstances. If we have committed to you that the course is online when you registered, it will remain online. Okay, so very important to make that sort of informed decision. With respect to the changes and hybrid courses, what hybrid means is that a portion of the class meetings will have a face-to-face component. Now, many of you want to know exactly how many times you're going to meet with that faculty member face-to-face. Some faculty have actually put that in the notes, but most are waiting for further guidelines from LA County Public Health and the governor and Cal Poly Pomona before they make that specific decision about the specific course sessions that'll be face-to-face. And so you'll want to check back. You can also email instructors, but at this point, it's a fluid situation. So that's the best way to describe it.
Terry, if I may just remind students that general registration for fall is still happening. So as you know, more information happens, you have until June 11th, I believe, to make changes to your schedule, and then you'll have another opportunity to do another adjustment in August. August 17th is when add drop begins. So there is a lot of flexibility, again, to continue to make changes, to look throughout the summer as things are updating. I did see a few students, incoming students that have joined the forum, and so you will be able to register for classes during your orientation session. And more information again will come as Terry mentioned.
Thank you. Reyes, there's a couple of questions coming in around move-in, but you know, not only the dates, but what will move-in look like? You know, so that people can stay distanced and all that. What are you anticipating there?
Yes, I was looking to the questions. The earliest potential move-in date will be August 15th. If we're able to do a welcome week and some version of that, we'll probably be looking at extending move-in dates so that we can continue to provide social distancing. There will be some requirements for guests that can assist you in making sure that you register those folks. Last year, we only allowed 2 people to help you move in. And we had set up assigned appointment times for you to move in so that, again, to ensure social distancing and the space within the elevators and all that, we're probably going to have a couple of days to have a move-in process. We don't want everybody showing up at the exact same time, trying to squeeze into the elevator to get into your new home, which we know you'll be all excited about, but we're going to be looking at having extended move-in days.
Thank you, Reyes. So another question is, you know, people may not be comfortable getting the vaccine. And there's a few questions around this. So I think it's an approach that a couple of people can take. But it's asking, I'll ask Rita first to chime in. But you know, we talked a little bit about the possible exemptions, right, around a religious exemption or medical. But what would you say to a student that's saying, I'm not comfortable with the vaccine?
Well, they do have the opportunity to continue the safety measures that we have in place now with masking and social distancing. So those will continue for all of us in all likelihood. And then in terms of having one shot, you know, with Johnson & Johnson, that's maybe better than having 2 shots for somebody that's not comfortable with needles, maybe. they might have oral vaccines developed. I don't know if that's going to be in time to serve your needs right now, but the really the ongoing is the masking and the social distancing for protection and safety. And then there's the exemptions that you may qualify for in the two categories that we mentioned.
Thank you, Rita. Terry, if a student is not comfortable with the vaccine, would they be able to continue taking courses from home?
Thank you for that. If a student signed up for a hybrid course, meaning that there is a face-to-face component, the expectation is that you would come for those face-to-face meetings. Now, wherever possible, we have tried to have in the schedule a fully online option and a hybrid option. That's sometimes hard to do in some of the smaller colleges that only have one section, right? So as you're registering, if you feel uncomfortable being on campus, do not select hybrid courses. Now, if you don't have a choice, right, there's only one section of what you need, then your approach would be different. You would need to begin communicating with the instructor and the department to express your concerns and the limited options you have, and try to negotiate something directly with the faculty in that instance. So we expect faculty to work with students, but if you did register for a hybrid course instead of a fully online course, the expectation is that you would be coming to campus for those limited face-to-face options.
Thank you, Terry. We know that this is, it's a lot of information. And, I'm reading one question from a transfer student, who has not been on campus. And we know that we had many new students this past year that have not been on campus. So our transfer students, our incoming freshman class, and other students that just couldn't be here and have that experience. Liz, I'd like to ask you, how are you and your staff thinking about this in terms of some of the student experience, what it could look like in terms of, our students having the opportunity to meet other students, network, have a little bit of experience?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're doing in ASI and student life is continuing planning for sort of a hybrid student engagement model. So there'll be both, much like academics, there'll be both virtual experiences students can participate in, and there will be on-campus activities that students will be able to participate in within the guidelines that are current. So there'll be all the protocols in place for all those things. We're also trying to figure out currently in one of the working groups how we're going to ensure that clubs and organizations are able to, in the fall, host some in-person activities depending on the guidelines. So we're making sure that all of that information is clear, accurate, timely, and we're in the process of doing that, which is we're thankful for summer to plan. So right now, one of the big questions we get often is, well, when will Bronco Fusion or big concerts come back to campus, which are huge parts of the student experience that I know we all look forward to in the fall. And any student who hasn't been on campus knows about because they're traditions. So for the time being, we are planning for, yes, some in-person activities in the fall. However, we may have to do an experience like Bronco Fusion or something of that nature in the spring, which we have planning in place for that, not only because it takes a lot of time to do once the guidelines allow it, but we also don't have facilities with fixed seating that can accommodate that size of an event in person based on the current guidelines. And as those guidelines evolve, which we hope they will, as we are vaccinated, then will be able to offer more experiences like the traditional delivery of those experiences.
It's all, again, we're going to have to see how the guidelines change and then what we can accommodate. So we're trying to plan with the current guidelines with the anticipation that some of those will loosen up. So Cecilia, we have a question from a student. It's a transfer student whose orientation isn't until late summer. Does that mean they have to wait to register for their classes until the end of July?
Yes, that is correct. So you will register. You probably have already registered for orientation, it sounds like. So you will, during that day, you will meet with an academic advisor from your college and your department to select the classes that you need to take for fall. Orientation is a requirement, and once you so there's different components of orientation. So our colleagues in orientation services will be sending communication about completing some online modules. That second part, again, is meeting with your academic advisor and selecting those classes. And as a transfer student, we need to process all your transcripts to ensure that you get credit for the courses that you've taken at another institution. And so, again, it'll be an introduction to your department and registering for classes on that day.
Thank you, Cecilia. That is so helpful. There's a question that I'm going to try to take. It's asking, for students who are fully vaccinated, will the guidelines be the same? We anticipate that guidelines could be different for those who are fully vaccinated. And again, once our policy has been established, we'll be able to give more information around the vaccines. But just as we're seeing what's happening outside of universities, where some things maybe are looking like they will be different for those that have a vaccine, we anticipate that there could be some changes. So it could be that maybe it's not 6 feet of distancing, or maybe more people are allowed in outdoor spaces. So those are some of the things that we're keeping in mind and waiting for the policy to come out, and also other guidelines from the CDC and the LA County Health Department. So I know there's a lot of questions about the vaccine, and we will have other webinars so that we can keep you all updated on that, because there's some questions we can't answer right now. If it's not approved by the FDA, what will that look like? So if it's not approved by the FDA, then it's not required. So then what would that look like? And we would need to wait and see, and that will depend on how our policy reads on what that could look like for the fall. So there's another question that gets into housing a little bit. So Reyes, if there's if an incoming freshman is registered for a double room, do you actually think that will happen, or are you anticipating that most students will be in single spaces?
So that's a good question. Right now, we're looking to be able to place people in doubles, so you could have a roommate. The only rooms that will definitely not have roommates will be those who are living in the traditional halls. Those spaces will all be singles. You do have the option to request to have a single. And so as you're filling out your housing portal, please go to that and make your selections. And if you do know somebody you want to live with, you could request them for roommates.
Thank you. You actually answered a couple of questions with that, because there was someone asking if they weren't comfortable being with so many people. So want to remind our audience of amazing students that you do have an option to ask for a single. So, if you're interested in that, please work on your housing application. So for Terry, question is around classes again. How would a student know? Is their class online? Is it hybrid? Is it face-to-face? How do they figure that out?
You just anticipated it. I was just trying to find it on our website. Cecilia will post it for us. But we on Student Success Central, which is a website that will have lots of information for you, you can find a sort of step-by-step on how to figure out what all of these courses mean, the different modes, and where to find the specific information. So we'll share that with you shortly. And if you have any questions about the online schedule and you're still confused, you can contact folks at the Bronco Advising Center, the back, and you'll see it in the chat. We've posted the website that lists the information. So thank you, because I know it can be confusing.
Thank you, Terry. Another question is around space, right? And what do you do if you're in between classes? You have one hybrid class, all that. We are working on outdoor space for students right now. So we're in the phase of looking at where can we put additional seating? Where does it make sense? Can we put in areas where a couple of students distanced if they needed to do some work, but also just have a place to go. The library is currently open in a limited capacity way for students that need to study, especially during finals. And this has given us a chance to pilot and test the systems so that we know what could work in the fall. And so the library would be open, and other spaces may have a limited capacity, but then that's where the outdoor spaces will be important to have. Actually, for Reyes, this is about the guest rules. Do you anticipate that the guest rule of having no guests would be lifted in the fall?
Another great question. As we're still working with, the guidelines from the CDC, local, public, and federal guidelines, we're doing the Bronco's Cares Pledge for all housing students, which will say if we're requiring the vaccination to live on campus, the guest policy will change. You will be allowed to have guests who are other residents come visit you. Non-residents will not be allowed to come into your residential space. And so at this point in time, we're really gauging and making sure that the policy is taking everybody's best interest in mind. We want you to have a great college experience. And if you're living with other residents who are vaccinated, we should be able to have you get together in your spaces, but we can ensure that non-CPP students or other students are not vaccinated, and we can't expose our residents to that. So there is going to be a modification to our current policy, which currently says no guest, to be more in line with guests that are residents could be admitted at a small number. We're not going to have 8 people, 10 people in a room, but you could have 2 or 3 people come visit you.
Thank you, Reyes. Rita, can you recap how students would send in their vaccination records?
Sure. Sorry, I might have done that too quickly. A couple different ways. You can just go to the main site for student health, and that's one way, and look for My Health Portal. The way that I suggested before was to search CPP immunizations, and then you'll see a blue button on the left-hand upper side, and it'll say log in to My Health Portal. And from there, you'll do your Duo sign on, and then you'll have an opportunity to upload a picture of your vaccine card through another button that says message.
Thank you. And there, if you look at this chat, we have posted the web link. For Cecilia or Terry, if a class says staff, how would a student know who to email?
Gosh, what another great question. Okay, so when it says staff, what that usually means at this point is that they have the class schedule, but they're finalizing contracts for students, for faculty instructors to teach the course. And because it's not finalized, they don't list their name in the schedule. So soon that will be updated, but you can always feel comfortable emailing the department chair and saying, I am enrolled in section 4, section 4 of whatever it is, the course. Give them the course information, saying, I would like to communicate with my instructor. Can you please provide me with the name and email? Now, the next question would be, well, how do you know who your department chair is for that department? At that Student Success Central website, we have a section that also lists all of the department chairs for each department, and so that you can find it there. And again, here, Cecilia just posted the directory for you. If you can't find it or folks aren't responding to you, email the Bronco Advising Center. That's always your one stop when you need some answers. So thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Cecilia, I see that you have a question that you're ready to answer. about, if you get a class in person and have another online an hour later and you commute, what's a student supposed to do?
Yeah, Christina, I think, you've mentioned, the pilot that we've been, that the library has been doing in partnership with Student Affairs to make it available for students, and they plan on continuing to have study spaces available so that if you have even a class shortly after your in-person class and you have to log in, that the library would be a good place, or outdoor spaces would be available. Also, one of the things that I learned is that if you need technology, if you need to borrow a laptop to sort of take to the park and sit under a tree and take your class, they will have technology available to use to borrow on a limit, like an hour or 2 hours. And so that is really cool. I would have loved to take classes under a tree if the weather permits, right? We're very lucky. So we will continue to offer different study spaces, so that we can accommodate the different modalities.
Thank you, Cecilia. So several of our students, they've been taking virtual tours. Maybe they've been on campus and maybe they haven't. Jared, can you share with students what you anticipate food? What are the cafeterias? What are the eateries? What is that going to look like in the fall?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina. So assuming everything continues to improve and the county guidelines allow for it, we anticipate a offering that includes in-person indoor seating, outdoor seating, and to-go orders. We are looking at having, or I should say first, currently Innovation Brewworks and Centerpoint offer all three options. So that's something we rolled out recently, all following the protocols and under the county guidance. But we do have all three of those options available. So in the fall, I expect that program to be much more robust, where most of our dining locations are open. So that's Centerpoint, Innovation Brewworks, Vista Market, Farm Store, Lolly Cup Jones, all of which are currently open, plus Polyfresh, Subway, Qdoba, Hibachi Sun, Starbucks, and that was one of the questions in the chat, Panda Express, Pony Express, and a new concept at the College of Business. And that will be our starting point for fall. If traffic dictates that we need to open more, we certainly are prepared to do so. In addition, I anticipate spring will be even more robust. So some additional concepts, assuming the population grows further for spring, will be reopened as well.
Thank you, Jared. Liz, what about the BRIC? What is happening there? What are you anticipating for the fall?
Yeah, we're planning to be open in the fall within the guidelines. And one of the things we're doing now is piloting our operations. So within early June, we're going to open for a pilot to ensure that all of our operations are sound and safe and ready for fall students to come back to the BRIC. So it's a reservation only system at first to test that. Hopefully by fall, we'll be at a very different tier and our capacities will change. So we'll be able to operate close to business as usual.
Thank you, Liz. So Cecilia, what do you anticipate advising would look like in the fall?
Yeah, we are actually in conversations. We have surveyed students and really learned that students do really appreciate having a virtual form of advising. So as a lot of my colleagues have mentioned today, we will keep some versions of online advising so that students can have access to advisors when they're not on campus, perhaps, or they have different work schedules and whatnot. So we are, as we continue to get guidance from the county and from the campus related to returning back to campus, we'll make sure that our schedules are modified and that we also have consistency across the colleges, right? That we make sure that students always have access to an advisor. I do want to put in a plug always that if you need to see an advisor, to go through CPP Connect and make those appointments. All of the college advising centers are in the system, and then we have a lot of faculty advisors also who are part of that. So we do hope, we learned a lot of great deals. We've had really great and meaningful, discussions and relationships that we've built through Zoom. So we want to keep some of that, but we do miss you. So we hope that we get to see you in person again.
Thank you, Cecilia. So here's another one about classes, and Terry, they're asking, if I don't get a vaccination, can I talk to my professor about another option, even if the course says that it's hybrid?
Yes. So vaccinations, as our folks on the call have said, we're waiting for more direction from the CSU, right? And so, while there is a directive that we will be a vaccinated campaign so long as we receive the approval. We're waiting on that. Now, for those who are vaccinated, there will be a certain protocol, and for others there may be a need to do, if you get an exemption for religious or medical reasons, there may be a need to do regular testing, right? And so there will be different options. Mask wearing will still be required because we're going to follow all the guidelines from the CDC and LA County Public Health. And if there are issues you need to work out with the professor where you don't feel comfortable coming to campus, and you'll need to do that on a one-on-one basis. But the expectation, again, if you're going to register for a hybrid course, is that you will have some limited face-to-face interaction with the campus.
Thank you, Cecilia. Reyes, we have a few questions here around housing. So can you tell us some of the amenities, what's available in the housing facilities that will be open? So is there laundry, AC, are there places to study? What does that look like?
Yes. So for the amenities for housing that's going to be available for the fall, we're going to open up our study spaces, but we're going to reconfigure the furniture in there so that we can ensure social distancing and following the guidelines. We're also looking at doing some in-person programming and services in that sense, like we used to do in smaller numbers. And so we'll have some outdoor activities, we'll have indoor programming, again, at a reduced occupancy in the space. The laundry rooms are available. We have residential parking. I saw that was a question down in the question and answer portion that said, is there parking spaces assigned to residents? They're not assigned to residents, but we do have residential parking lots that are right next to our buildings. So you get to park next to where you live. You have to get a special little permit sticker that goes onto that parking pass. The other things that you'll be able to get in housing is you'll have access to our professional staff, our area coordinators. We have a counselor in residence that you'll be able to utilize as well. We have a team of student leaders that are going to be able to connect you with programs and services and how to navigate the college system. And so there's a lot of personal connections that you'll be able to make by living in housing. But in regards to amenities, again, it's a place that you will be able to call home.
And Reyes, do you anticipate the same for the village?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the village and University Housing Services have been working very closely together to make sure that we're mirroring each other's guidelines and expectations. And so just as housing at University Housing Services is looking to be at 75% occupancy, the village is looking at 82-ish% occupancy. So the same kind of parameters, there's potential for doubles and singles in those spaces as well, and limited shared restrooms.
Thank you, Reyes. Rita, for the fall or even maybe later this summer, what can a student do if they'd like to get a vaccine? Will you be offering it in student health, or what would you recommend for our students?
We hope possibly to be able to provide the COVID vaccines in the fall, but it's not a certainty. So the best thing to do is to get on the My Turn site and try to find a place very close to you, because between CVS and the different drugstores having the vaccine now, it's probably easiest for you to get it that way. And of course, it's always free. And if you go to a site that still might have a setup to do a drive-through or anything like that, we have been asked before, so I just want to answer this question. There is no questions about any kind of citizenship or immigration status or anything like that that they will ever ask at a vaccine site. So we have been asked that, so I just wanted to say that as well. So that's probably the easiest way.
Rita, there's a couple of students that are asking when they went to the site you mentioned earlier, and it's having them select the department, and they're asking which is it? Is it immunization questions, medical records? Where is it that they should click?
It's immunizations. And if you have any problem with that, let me give you a telephone extension so you can get in-person help. We do have an immunization specialist in student health. So the extension would be 6760. And that would be personal help. And you can leave a message on that number because our specialist, Stephanie, might be helping somebody else. So please leave a message if you call that number.
Thank you, Rita. Reyes, another interesting question. Is there any students that receive priority housing?
So priority housing, not really. So what we do is we have our housing applications go live. That's how we place students, is based on when you submitted your application. We do take other factors into consideration, like working with our partners in the DRC, working with Renaissance scholars, working with students who may find themselves homeless. So our international students, students with distance. And so we'll take those into consideration, but hopefully we would have already communicated with you in advance, or you had let us know. And so that we would have encouraged you to submit an application earlier to ensure your space.
And I'm going to have you stay on because how do you anticipate in the suites? How will roommates work in that layout?
How do we anticipate roommates working in the suites?
In the suites. Mm-hmm.
The portal has been activated so that you can go in. If you know 4 people or 3 other people besides yourself that want to live together, you can all select to live together. If you only know 1 other person or 2 other people, you can all request to live in the same suite, and a 4th or a 3rd person will be added to your suite based on availability. And so the roommate working on out is you'll have a single for the most part, and the only thing that you'll be sharing is the restroom and the living space, which includes the kitchen area. And so I'm anticipating that you would have an opportunity, because you're a returner student, you may know folks that you would want to live with, and I would encourage you to go in that route. That would be the same for the village.
Thank you, Reyes. And do you anticipate for the suites that move-in would be about the same time as the other facilities?
Yes, we're planning on, again, having it a couple of day rollout. So it might be a 2-day move-in process so that we can ensure that students can get in safely and not all try to cram in at the same time into their space.
Thank you. To answer a question around, the commute and having multiple classes, we are looking, as we mentioned earlier, not only outdoor spaces, but we're taking into consideration that a student may have a virtual class. And so are there places where a student can go, small spaces, possibly in the library or other parts of campus, to be able to sit in a quiet space if you do have a class. So we are looking into that. So there'll be more to come around that. Can't give a direct answer yet, but that is something we're taking into consideration. Reyes, you already talked about, the different groups that, could have some information to share with you, and you take it in around, not necessarily prioritizing, but okay, you have these needs. What about a sophomore who has not been able to live in housing, but they'd like to for the fall? Do you have any advice for them?
I do. Turn in your application. We know that students who are going to be sophomores next year did not have the opportunity to live their freshman year with us. And so with that already in mind, we have already designated one of the brand new buildings that I'm sitting in right now will be a sophomore community. And so we're looking to place all our sophomores together to give them an opportunity to get their living on campus experience, as well as provide them additional support and services that not only of being new to the campus, but being a sophomore to our campus. And so we have our college themed community programs that we run for our first time freshmen. We're extending that to our sophomore community. And so there's going to be a great opportunity to get that first year experience as a sophomore, but not be treated like a first year student. We're really going to be tailoring the experience to a sophomore student status.
Thank you, Reyes. Jared, really another question around the village. What are you thinking? So if we have a student living at the village that's been vaccinated, do you think that a family member who's also been vaccinated would be able to be a guest?
So like everything else, we will be making sure we're on top of what the protocols call for, particularly in higher ed. However, I would anticipate someone that is vaccinated, guests will open up, I should say, more than we've had in the past. So if you lived in housing now or lived in housing last semester, there were pretty strong restrictions on guests, and we do anticipate that it'll be lighter come the fall, following what the current guidelines are at the time.
Thank you. So as we are thinking about this, Reyes, it comes up that the pricing has not been set around this, and Jared, this could also be for you. So around housing and dining, when do you anticipate that we will know what the pricing would look like and what's required from the students?
I just put in the chat the link. It is on the website. You may not follow it through. It's on the application process as well as under future students. So I just put a quick little link there for you. You can click on that. The pricing is there, and it also talks about the meal plans.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. So we have a question. If a student is assigned a roommate, is it guaranteed that the roommate will be vaccinated? It looks like this is from a mom saying her son is vaccinated and would like for the roommate to be vaccinated. So Reyes, what are your thoughts on that?
We're still working that all out. I would hope that the student, if they know somebody who is also vaccinated, they can request to be roommates to guarantee that. We will do everything that we can with the new requirement. Hopefully we'll have the requirement that says in order to live on campus, you have to have the vaccination, that a majority of our students will be vaccinated, and that would be a mute point. But I understand the concern around that, and we will work with students so that you can send us a direct message, and we will reach out to you as well.
Thank you. Rita, would you be able to share in the chat for students that are wondering, maybe a link to the CDC? They are wanting some information about the different vaccines so that they can get information and make the best decision for themselves. Is that something that you'd be able to do?
I can't really reach my keyboard, so so I can't really do it at this moment in time. But there's some good links on the Safer Return website, though, that for the campus. So that's always a good starting point. And there's some links to the CDC there.
Thank you. So that's a good point. So our Safer Return website, which is now in the chat, is a great place to go for information, and it's going to continuously be updated. So if there's policies that come in or anything that we need to post, that is the best place. You might want to bookmark it, have it as a favorite. That way you can go to it from time to time and see if there's any updates. So here's a question around housing. Is there any options that do not require sharing a bathroom?
Unfortunately for University Housing Services, the answer to that is most likely no. It really will depend whether or not we're at full, if we reach that 75% occupancy, because there could be a slim chance that you're in a suite that does not have 4 people, but 3, and you're the lucky one that has the only restroom. Because the building is designed to have 2 restrooms and 4 singles. And so again, there could be the possibility, but right now, the plan is that people will be at least sharing 2 people per restroom, with the most being our traditional halls, which would be around 16 people sharing a restroom, but it's a larger restroom with 6 stalls and 6 showers. And so it has more space. And so that number, and that's the reason why we're only offering singles in that building, to reduce the number of people in the restroom.
Which makes total sense, especially with the current guidelines that we have. So this seems like a really good time for housing questions, because we know that students are trying to get in, deciding if they want to live on campus. A couple of questions around the housing application. So if a student turned in their housing application before someone that they want to roommate with did, does this have any impact on their choice of housing getting first choice, or any of the chances of being placed with the person that they'd like to room with?
Yes, that's a very detailed and individualized question, because every scenario will be different depending on the factors that I mentioned previously. It's really based on when you submitted your application, we'll first get you a spot. So if the person you want to live with just turned in an application and has not been assigned, it would not mean you wouldn't get your spot, because you met the criteria of turning an application in earlier. We will look at all of the other factors included in your request, but it won't be necessarily a guaranteed that they would be your assigned person. That also can change in the sense that once you move in, we can work with you and your roommates to do a room change at a later date. And so your roommate may be totally open for you to have that person move in and they move into their space and do a room swap. So there's things that we can work on down the road, but initially the goal is to have you just at least put in the portal that you have a request to have somebody to live with. And then we'll see where we end up when we start doing assignments. And once you get your assignment, if that doesn't happen, you can reach out to us.
Reyes, what about students that are interested in spring? When should they start applying? When would that open up?
It's opened up now. So you have the ability to start to turn in your application. When we give you an offer of a space, even for the fall, if you decide that you rather wait to the spring, you can defer that. You can tell us, I'm not interested. I decided most of my classes I'm able to do virtually. I'm not going to come onto campus, or I don't yet feel comfortable coming onto campus, but I would like to postpone it till spring. You can do that. And our hope again is that we will actually increase occupancy in the spring, because hopefully the world will be at a much better place with everything. And we'll have that ability to house you in the spring.
Thank you. One last question. Are there resources for transfer students to find potential roommates?
Oh, that is a good question. What we do, though, we will have a transfer community. We have been committed to working with our transfer students who come to Cal Poly Pomona. So we do have Building 54, which is Estrellas, which is the suites. We're designating that as a transfer community, again, to offer additional programs and services for those students. So we may not be able to connect you right now with a match. I would say use orientation to get to know people, to then request them down the road. But you will most likely be placed with another transfer student. So that's where we're at with that right now. We haven't built out a roommate connection portal yet for any of our populations.
Thank you. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I want to give the opportunity, if there's anyone on the panel would like to share something with students that they should be keeping in mind as we're moving forward. Is there anything around classes, Terry, that you think they should keep in mind? that's the piece. And Rita, from a health place, is there anything that you think students should be thinking about?
Thank you. I know the modes of instruction are confusing. They're confusing to people on this panel. So let us be of service to you. Your best resource is your academic advisors in the colleges. Each of the colleges has an advising center, and the Bronco Advising Center and Student Success Central. I know you don't have all of the information that you need at this point because things are still fluid, but you should be able to at least choose online, fully online, or hybrid, so that aligns with your preferences in most cases. It won't be perfect, right? But we're going to do our best. And please reach out to us. That's our job, to help you, and we're prepared to do that. So thank you.
And I would just echo what Terry said, that it is our job to help you. So we are open every day in the summer, all the way through the fall. We're open now. So 8 to 5, reach out to us and we'll answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. Students, thank you for joining us today. We've learned so much from your questions. This will be posted on the Safer Return website so that you'll be able to link to it if you need to watch it again. And we will continue having these webinars for you during the summer. So as we get more information and the plans are solidified, we will be sharing that with you. So thank you again and have a great afternoon.